Hello and welcome to another MyPath podcast. This is now our fourth episode. You will notice today that we are not on site at our usual office. We're actually over in the Mid Leicestershire office in Anstey with local MP Peter Bedford. Peter, thank you for allowing us on site today and thank you for your time.
Welcome to Anstey.
Thank you very much. Peter, I know we've spoken off camera beforehand today and we spoke a little bit about what the plan is, but just a reminder, we're really keen to, I think, share with the audience the idea that, you know, it's okay if we don't know exactly what we want to do yet for a career. Careers are not always linear, and we've just been kind of looking at interviewing various people from various different sectors that can really share some nuggets of information, and I'm really grateful for you to accepting this invite, because obviously we've not had an MP on just yet. So what we tend to do is we kind of start with your journey, I suppose really from childhood, in terms of, you know, your education, and then we take it from there. So if you don't mind kind of introducing yourself and then just, I suppose, a bit of an intro into where it all began.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
So yeah, I mean, my journey didn't start as an MP. You know, clearly it's been a long and winding road to become an MP. I mean, I guess I grew up in Northamptonshire, so I went to the local state school and you know, really enjoyed school. I was always quite good at maths and that kind of space, so numbers was always my thing.
Yep.
And I guess when I was growing up, I thought, right, okay, I'm definitely going to go into something to do with maths because, you know, that's just what I'm good at.
Yep.
So I didn't really enjoy PE and that kind of stuff. It wasn't for me. I was never good at sport, so I was never going to go into that. But then, you know, you come towards the end of your GCSEs, you start thinking, right, okay, I've got to think about my A levels now. What am I going to do? So you know, I picked a range of A levels. I picked law actually, which isn't numerical, but it was something that I was quite good at GCSE. You know, I did accounting as well, economics and English. So I picked a range of subjects where I thought, do you know what? There's quite a broad spectrum here. It's not just mathematics. It's also got some written stuff in there as well. Really enjoyed. You know, I think my most enjoyable time in education was sixth form actually, because you got to choose which subjects you were doing and you could really drill into it because you had an interest in it. Yeah. So really enjoyed sixth form, A levels. You know, made some good friends there, and it was just a time where you could really just enjoy education. It was really good for me. So then you start thinking, okay, what am I going to do? And I guess I start thinking, you know, I'm definitely going to get a degree because that's what we were being told. You know, I went to university in 2004, so around that time we had Tony Blair as Prime Minister, and he was having a real big push on. You know, we want 50% of the public to go to university education, and that's something perhaps I'll come back to. But at the time there was a big push on that, and so to me it was the obvious choice. I mean, in my family, no one had ever been to university. So I was the first person to apply and to get in university. I decided to do law because I did quite well at A level at law. I thought, right, okay, it's a solid subject. You know, I can probably go far with this. So started looking around at universities and applied for about 6-10 universities and then ended up at Leicester. So that's how I ended up in Leicestershire. Moved to Leicestershire in 2004, did a law degree at Leicester University. You know, I think in hindsight, probably law wasn't the right subject for me, even though I enjoyed it at A level. I think because I was so familiar with it, having studied it before, I became too familiar with it. And I'll be totally honest, I started to get bored. You know, towards the end of the degree, I was getting a bit bored of it. There was a lot more written kind of reading side that wasn't quite interesting me as much as it perhaps used to. And I knew then, right, okay, I don't want to practice law, so I don't want to be a lawyer. What do I want to do? So, as I mentioned earlier, you know, I was always quite good at maths and business was something that I thought, okay, I want to get a career, I want to go into business, how can I do that? So I started to do some research, did some research on graduate schemes, a number of different graduate schemes in the East Midlands, particularly around Leicester, Leicestershire, Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire. And one of those schemes was offered by a large accounting practice called PwC. So PwC offered a graduate scheme where essentially you joined the scheme, it was a 3-year training contract, so you essentially worked for the company as a trainee, and then you got released, 6-week blocks released to a college to do your exams. And those exams were tough, you know, they were really tough. And it really attracted me because you could earn and learn at the same time. At the end of the 3 years, you got a qualification, which you could then use. And actually, the ICAW qualification that I then later achieved was really quite versatile in going into different directions outside of accountancy. So it was a winding journey, not linear, certainly not linear in nature. And then after I qualified at PwC, I did my training contract, did my exams, which were very tough. I decided, you know what, I've done my training contract, let's see what I can do in industry. So then I started to look around different jobs, and I secured a job at a local firm in Leicestershire called Aggregate Industries, which sounds a bit of a mouthful, but a lot of Leicestershire people know them from the triangular symbol. Essentially, they deal in quarrying and construction business materials. And so I joined them in their audit team, really enjoyed my time there, made some really good friends, and that was my first job, if you like, outside of training. And then got some really good experience there before I then went to work in the beverage sector. So I went from quarrying into beverages. So then I went to work for a company called Britvic, which people may have heard of. So, they produce Robinson's drinks, they produce Pepsi and lots of different soft drinks. So worked for Britvic for a number of years, and then an opportunity rose, a promotion, if you like, at a water company, Severn Trent, which serves water across Leicestershire. And so that was my job before becoming an MP. So I joined Severn Trent as a senior manager within their audit team, and led a lot of kind of managing the team, and I guess, if you like, it was the natural next progression for me. And then last year, I was very fortunate to be elected as a Member of Parliament. So I guess I've had a number of jobs before becoming an MP, but I think each one has given me that extra skill set to progress a bit further. So,
Peter, you have summarised very well there. You've almost kind of preempted my questions.
Right, okay.
It's almost like you're comfortable speaking in front of cameras.
There we go.
So ironically then, Peter, you said you weren't really a fan of sports back in the day, but actually you ended up working at Leicester City Football Club.
That's true. That is true. But actually, I knew that for me, I was just not made out for sport, right? But actually, I really enjoy. I enjoy going to the football. I enjoy going and seeing the team play. And the opportunity I got by working with them as an accountant gave me the chance to see behind the scenes. People see the football pitch, they see players playing, they see all the drama of what goes on. But actually, behind the scenes, it was great to see. Actually, how's a football club run?
That's a really interesting point, because I work with a lot of children that say they really like sport, they want to work in sport, but I've been told there's not many jobs there. If I'm not a professional, what can I do? But there's a prime example. There's so many roles in and around sport, particularly these professional clubs that have a massive infrastructure in place, that you can still be involved with sport in successful jobs, even if you're not in the first team 11.
Yeah, I mean, look at a football club. When I was at Leicester City, you had the academy going on, you had a finance function, you had scouts going out there recruiting players. Really diverse, actually. So actually, in some respects, a football club is no different to another business, because you've got so many different functions going on. So it was a great experience. Good
to hear. So, a successful accountant. For how many years was that in total?
Yeah, so I qualified as a chartered accountant about 15 years ago. And then worked in various roles, which I outlined earlier. And then last year at the general election became the local MP for Mid Leicestershire. So, years.
A big congratulations there, because I know you're the first ever MP for Mid Leicestershire, a new constituency. If we've got listeners that are thinking, you know what, politics, I like the sound of that, I'm considering getting into politics. How do you go from being an accountant to becoming an MP? What was your journey from accountancy to MP? How does that work?
So when I was involved in doing my training as an accountant, and actually probably before that even, when I was at sixth form, I started to get more politically aware. Form my own opinions of the world, how I thought things could be improved. So I started to get involved in politics from probably my late teens. Then I went to university, which is a very political place. Started to, again, form more opinions of the world and how I thought things could be improved, and got involved with a local political party. So, I'm from Northamptonshire, so I got involved with a local political party back there. Used to go out helping some local councillors, campaign, knocking on doors, speaking to people, delivering leaflets, all that kind of stuff that happens in politics.
So this was all happening alongside you developing your career?
It was concurrent, So it wasn't just me being an accountant and that was my only thing. Outside of my day job, I'd actually do stuff in politics as well. So they were both running alongside each other in parallel. And then as my career progressed, particularly when I was training, I paused the politics for a few years because I recognised that that was taking a lot of my time. I was studying, I was working, I was having to qualify as an accountant. That takes a lot of time and a lot of mental energy. So the politics got paused for a couple of years for me, and once I graduated and qualified even as a chartered accountant, and then had a bit more time to then pick up the politics.
Yeah.
And then I stood for election. I haven't always won elections. I stood for elections a number of times. I got elected as a county councillor in Leicestershire. So I've been a county councillor for the last 8 years. And again, I was doing that alongside my day job.
I was about to say that. Is that still a part-time role?
Yeah, so I'm standing down in May. So the next set of elections come in May this year. So now that I'm a member of Parliament, I think it's the right time for me to step down as a councillor.
Okay.
And someone else take the baton on and take it forward. But yeah, it ran alongside my day job. So I was working as a day job, be it for Britvic or be it for Severn Trent or whatever the company I was working for. Alongside that, I was also a councillor as well.
Wow, pretty busy, pretty busy.
Yeah.
So Peter, if you don't mind, could we talk a little bit about the barriers that someone might face, whether that's a career in accountancy or in politics? What sort of barriers have you had to overcome? I'm guessing time might be one of them. Yeah. What sort of things have you overcome to get to where you are now?
So I think a big barrier for me in my early career, I guess a lot of it is confidence. So I come from a single parent family. My mum was a single mum. I was the eldest of 3 kids in the family, so we didn't really have a father figure. So I was kind of taking on that kind of eldest son, kind of father figure type role to my 2 younger brothers. So that was a real pressure when I was growing up.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a pressure my mum put on me, but it was that natural, responsibility and wanting to kind of help the family. So I guess that was my first real challenge in that, going to university was a massive thing for me.
Yeah.
Because I'd be leaving the family home, I'd be moving away, I'd be essentially setting my own life up outside of the family unit. That was a real challenge to me to get my head round, and having the confidence from that. If you come from a nuclear family that's quite 2 parents, 2 kids, then I think you've got that comfort of knowing that you've got the parents there to support you. We didn't have a lot of money when I was growing up, so I always felt a bit, I can't do all these school trips, or I can't go on stuff that other kids that maybe can go on. So I felt that was a little bit of a hindrance to me when I was growing up. But I think reflecting on it now afterwards, I think that gave me resilience. I think that gave me drive actually. Thinking, do you know what? I had quite a tough upbringing. And
I can do this.
Yeah, I can do this. I want to make sure that, I want to get a really good career, because then I can provide for myself, my family, and then look after my family as well. So
really interesting. So would it be fair to say, and correct me if I phrase this wrong, that you're from a working class family, disadvantaged to an extent, and you've gone from that position there to a successful MP, so we can achieve anything that we put our minds to?
Yeah, I would say that. I think that drive is the key. I would say you've got to. I guess if I rewind, if when I was in my teens, I was the first to go to university, and that was a real achievement for me.
Yeah.
So getting a degree was a real achievement. All my family, my grandparents, my uncles, aunts, they'd all had jobs that were, I guess, what you could typically call working class jobs. Which nothing wrong with that. No. But they were never, I guess, high earners or able to aspire to own their own homes.
So I suppose it's that kind of social mobility piece, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that I'm really passionate about actually, because I think that having that drive, having that ambition to, of course you want to do better for yourself, but you want to do better for your family as well.
Yeah, because they've sacrificed to
exactly.
get you.
So that was my drive, I guess, and that gave me the focus to want to do better. Really good,
really good. Peter, if you don't mind, could we start looking at kind of the importance of transferable skills as well? So, and I know we've spoken off camera a bit about communication. So obviously our audience will tend to be aged between 11 and 18 perhaps.
Sure.
What sort of skills do you think, I suppose, the next generation should be thinking about developing, perhaps when we talk about those soft skills? So we know they need their academic qualifications, of course they do. But what sort of skills should our next generation be focusing on to impress future colleges in interview, future universities, apprenticeship providers, employers? Could you give us a couple to perhaps work with there?
Yeah, I think communication skills are key. I think that we live in a digital age now. Everyone's got an an Android or an iPhone.
As I'm sat here with an
You've got
iPad.
a tablet. Everyone's
Yeah.
got technology. They use technology all the time. It's just, the first thing you do in the morning probably is look at your phone and
Yeah,
see what messages
yeah.
you've got or whatever. And I think behind that lies, basic skills of communication, being able to have a conversation like we're having now, for
Yeah.
example. I think a lot of young people now probably struggle a little bit because they spend so much screen time
Yeah,
behind a screen.
yeah.
It's far easier for them to WhatsApp each other, let's meet up,
Yeah.
rather than pick up the
Yeah,
phone
yeah,
and say,
yeah.
let's meet up. So I think having those skills that can communicate effectively and, speak one-on-one like we're doing now, that's
Yeah.
really, really key, because despite living in a digital world, I think there's no better way of communicating than talking to someone.
For sure. So I know we spoke off camera around the infrastructure in politics, and myself and Jamie were asking you various questions because we're generally interested and intrigued. And I know that you've recruited various people. So when you were recruiting or shortlisting for interview to be part of your team, obviously you were looking at communication. Are there any sort of other skills that came to the fore that you wanted from your candidates?
I think the ability to work as a team, I think that's key. So I think that there are two sides to it. One is to be able to work as a team, because I've got a busy parliamentary office. I've got staff in London, I've got staff here in Leicestershire. So we've got to work together because we're not always in the same place. So the ability to communicate effectively when you're not in the same location is really key. The ability to work together for shared goals. If I'm doing a speech in the House of Commons, I need my person in London to be speaking to my person here about making sure that the communication's right, that any press release that is done is accurate and is spot on.
Yeah.
So I think teamwork is real key in terms of a skill, but also having that confidence to work independently and being self-assured that you've got this.
Yeah.
I think I say to my team members, I'll never have a go at them if you make a mistake, because it gives them a learning point. And if you learn from your mistakes, I think that's a really, really key piece of self-awareness. And I think that really helps people to improve. So,
and I suppose there's a lot to be said there for resilience as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
It's okay to make mistakes. We go again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In my life, I've had lots of ups and downs,
Yeah.
and I stood for Parliament before, didn't win,
and that must be tough, right? When you
that
don't
is
win.
tough.
Yeah,
And resilience is really key in
Yeah.
this, because life isn't simple. Life
No.
isn't a straightforward journey. You have ups and downs. You have
Yeah.
setbacks.
Yeah.
And I think if you get knocked down and you stay down, you're never going to get anywhere. So I think having that resilience to basically stand up,
Yeah.
reflect, think, okay, what went wrong there? Why did it go wrong? Okay, what can I do to
Yeah.
change that?
Yeah, and that's just like being at school, isn't it? When if you're writing, I don't know, an English essay, you get your feedback. Sometimes you're like, oh, it's deflating, but actually, no, okay, I'll take the guidance on, from the teacher. I'll take that on the chin. What do I need to do? And you just improve next time, don't you? So these transferable skills are really, really important.
Yeah, and I think it's having the awareness of that. I mean, like you say, no one likes necessarily to have a critique of them. I mean, I get criticised all the time as an MP, but I think it's having the self-awareness to realise that actually reflect, maybe they were right about that, or you can push back and think, I don't maybe disagree on that, but actually maybe they have a point. Maybe I could have done it this way.
Yeah.
So I think it's having that self-awareness and that ability to reflect. Those are really key skills in being able to progress.
Peter, if you don't mind, I just want to pick up again on the kind of recruitment of prospective candidates working in politics. We spoke a bit about soft skills. What about academics? So for example, if I'm a 15, 16-year-old that's keen on becoming a member of Parliament when I'm a bit older, do I need to have straight 9s at GCSE? Do I need to have straight A's at A-levels? Do I need to have a first class honours degree from Oxford, Cambridge? Or actually, are there various routes into this?
Yeah, I don't think it's as simple as having straight A's or being top of the class. I think a lot of employers, particularly when I was recruiting my team, I look at a range of things. Of course, having strong academics is a good thing.
Yep.
We should all aspire to that. But actually having those secondaries, transferable skills, having, as I mentioned before, having great communication skills, being able to work as a team, being able to reflect on self-awareness and where you can improve, all of those things are really important, because actually employers need to look at not just that someone's got straight A's and they in theory can do the job.
Yeah.
In reality, can they do the job?
Yeah.
So can they demonstrate they've done something before? So when I look at a CV, for example, I'll not just look at what their grades were, I'll look at what they've done.
Yeah.
So if someone's done the Duke of Edinburgh, if someone's done a voluntary charity work locally, or they've done something that has been outside of the academic sphere but demonstrates they've got those skills, that'll grab my attention.
Yeah. So you're looking at well-rounded individuals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's great having a strong academics,
Yeah.
but I think that alone isn't enough in today's market.
Yeah.
I think you've got to have a broader, more balanced CV and experience set.
Yeah, brilliant. I just want to jump back on as well, Peter. Apologies, so many questions in my mind. You spoke about all those setbacks. How did it eventually feel to be voted in as a Member of Parliament and, you know, I suppose to be endorsed by so many of your constituents? How does that feel?
It was a great feeling. It was, you know, I mean, for my party, it was a very difficult night. So it was tinged with sadness, but, you know, from a personal perspective, it was great. I mean, I had been involved in politics for many years. So it was a long time coming, but as I said, it wasn't a straight journey.
No.
You know, I first got approved to stand as an MP for the party that I represent 15 years ago. So it took a long time to get there.
But that's okay, isn't it? You know,
Absolutely.
sometimes, you know, it takes a while to get there and you've still got plenty of years left to work, right? So, you know, you can make a serious impact.
Yeah, and so if I rewind 5 years, I got to the final of a selection in Bosworth, which is the neighbouring constituency. I lost out by a couple of votes to another candidate. And that was a setback. You know, it was a real, you know, hammer blow to me. And, you know, that evening I went home and I looked in the mirror and I thought, what the hell is going on? You know, what are you going to do? And, you know, I could have just quit then. And I was tempted to do that. I was tempted to quit and then just think, you know what? You don't need this. Focus on your finance career. You earn loads of money and, you know, you can do that. But actually, I thought, no, actually, I really want to go into this. I really want to progress in politics. Dust yourself down. You know, reboot yourself and go again, and that was key to it really. So then when, you know, I got elected at the general election, you know, I think that experience gave me the learning to take me forward to the next election.
Yeah, well, congratulations again. I just want to bring this to the end now, Peter, if that's okay. Would it be fair to say that your career has not been linear? Yeah?
Absolutely, yeah. As I say, you know, from rewind back to when I was a student, an A-level student. You know, varied A-levels. Didn't quite know which career I was going to do, but I knew that okay, I'm quite good at law. I'll do law, and then did the law degree. Realised actually didn't enjoy it that much. Decided then that I wanted to get some business experience. Got onto a graduate scheme as a trainee chartered accountant, so went completely in a different direction. Worked in practice, for a number of years, and realised, you know what, I quite like this job, but I want to go and experience some industry. And then the various industries that I worked in. So absolutely, it's been a long and winding road, certainly not a straight road.
Sounds like a song. So that's really powerful for our audience, and also just to conclude as well, the importance of transferable skills, so important, you know, because you could be working across a number of sectors, and even if we don't train in a certain discipline, and we decide we want to move, we can take various skills over with us. Would you agree on that?
Absolutely, and I think that's key, because if you've only got one kind of narrow view, and you know, some people say, I only want to do this job, and they only do this job. I think you might be disappointed, because actually you're maybe closing off your options and closing off future career opportunities and experiences. You know, when I was growing up, did I think I was going to be an MP? Probably not. No. I thought maybe one day I want to go into politics, but I didn't know I was going to be an MP. So I think by doing different jobs, by getting different experiences, by using those transferable skills, you can progress in your career through different roles.
So our audience shouldn't worry if they don't know what they want to do just yet. That's okay, you know, and that's really reassuring. Peter, I'll leave it there now. I appreciate we've kept you very late this evening. I know you've got a clinic in the morning, so thank you again for your time.
Thank you very much.
Were there any messages you want to pass on to the audience at all, or are you happy to leave it there, Peter?
That's great. I just want to say that, you know, whatever life throws at you, the key is resilience. The key is to reflect on what's gone well, what's not gone so well, learn from what's not gone so well, and that will help you and put you in good stead for the future.
Thank you, Peter. And on that positive note, I'll leave it there. We'll see you soon, guys. Thank you.